The Prince and Princess of Wales surprise everyone with an Easter visit.
And Prince Harry moans about his lack of privacy while in underwear he bought with the proceeds from his tell all. Welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show that dives into the fascinating world of two of the most recognized royal couples from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on Prince Harry and Meghan from California.
And I'm Rupert Bell, bringing you some surprise updates from the UK on the Prince and Princess of Wales. And I think I've got a view in too about the couple from California.
All right, so let's discuss some great shots we saw over the weekend of King Charles, Queen Camilla, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, their beautiful family. They arrived together to attend the annual Easter service at St. George's Chapel at Windsor. And a lot of the stories surrounded the absence of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. I mean, I understand why, I guess, from a journalistic perspective, but I was pretty content with what we had going on. I didn't personally miss them. And I also thought that Peter Phillips, he has a beautiful fiance named Harriet Sperling. She's a pediatric nurse, a healthcare professional. And I loved the addition of her I know that this is very important to you, but from a fashion perspective, she seems to be accepting this new role, technically adjacent, to the British royal family. And, she just looked absolutely darling on Easter Sunday with the family. So, yeah, the majority of the headlines I saw generated were about the absence of the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor clan, but I wasn't missing them.
Well, no, and that's old news. That was just like trying, they were there a year ago, but we knew they weren't going to be there this year. So it's almost like, oh, that's a surprise. What was a surprise? And let's put this into context. Last year, the Prince and Princess of Wales weren't there. But actually, it was very important in hindsight, because I think I said last week I didn't think they might be still in Sandringham or at Amner Hall.
Mhm.
But it was very important that they were there because, as we know, it's not it's a sort of private public function like Christmas Day. So it's an important day for the royal family to come together, and people travel. That lots of spectators go down there. The fact that they were there was very important for the king and queen. And then you saw Charlotte, George. My goodness me, I don't know what he's going through a growth spurt.
We got a
And,
basketball player on our hands.
and Louis suddenly seems to have got the impishness seems to have slightly gone from him a little bit as he gets a little older. But I actually, yes, and then you did notice that Peter Phillips. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about Peter Phillips and give him real praise because as you know, I know we're going slightly off topic, but you don't mind, but it's got very much a royal resonance. Peter Phillips, okay, Mark Phillips and Princess Anne's boy, Zara Tyndall, his sister. Well, this last year I gave an award to his mother. Well, his father, Mark Phillips, was an incredible equestrian. He actually was worked very closely with the United States equestrian team. This is cross country, very big links, but also a lifetime achievement. One of the greatest three-day event riders this country has produced. Well, I had the privilege of giving him an award, but unfortunately, he couldn't turn up at our awards lunch. But the man who made sure that his dad was on hand, and he'd flown back from Abu Dhabi, where he's a big motorsport fan, Peter Phillips, and we hatched a plot to get his father to be at a place, and Peter helped me do this and gave a lovely message about his father's achievement. He's a good lad, Peter Phillips. His press has not always been straightforward. He's had one or two sort of business dealings that people say hasn't quite gone right. Well, which member, so the Edinburghs have had their issues in that department. But he's now, and bearing in mind, Harriet Sperling, got a 15-year-old daughter, so fits very neatly into the sort of tribe of Peter Phillips, his two daughters from his marriage to autumn, and so it was a very good scene. Now the marriage is going to be on June the 6th, so I think it was good to see that. We also saw Prince Edward's son there, but unfortunately, Lady Louise was still doing her studies, and they say, and the Duke of Edinburgh, Duchess of Edinburgh, pulled out. But I think the dynamic of that was a slimmed down royalty, no fuss, no bother, everyone just getting on with it, no baggage. So actually, what you couldn't do is go pick holes and make a story about something other than seeing the king patting his granddaughter on the cheek as they went into the
That
church.
was Louis, but yeah, Louis. He touched. It was Louis. He touched.
Well, no, Charlotte got one as well. There's
Oh,
a
okay.
picture, so they all get, look, he's his grandfather, doing, but he gave a, and they all look good. And so that we didn't have any negative headlines. So I think it was an important moment to show the sort of, now this is the monarchy. This is what we are now. And the only absentee was the Duchess of Edinburgh, who was feeling unwell. So I think it was yeah, a nice, happy scene, a family at peace.
Now, I have to tell you guys about a complete game changer, Peak's Liver Detox Protocol. You may not know it, but your liver handles a lot: energy, hormones, digestion, and even your mood. But with all the stress and toxins from everyday life, it needs some love. Forget harsh cleanses. Peak delivers gentle daily support inspired by traditional Chinese medicine. Their routine uses two simple blends. The first is a warming turmeric mix with cinnamon and black pepper, designed to help the body absorb it better and support the liver while calming inflammation. The second is a ginger and cinnamon blend that helps with blood flow, digestion, bloating, and immune support. The magic is how they work together to activate and flush for better digestion, stable energy, less brain fog, and that light, clear feeling. My energy is consistent now, skin is clear, and less bloating. Redefine your standard of health. Secure 20% off your order and begin your intentional wellness journey today at peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. To your point, we're going here a little early, but this broke. You sent it to me this morning at 6 a.m. my time. Um,
Mm.
just to your point about how what you felt the takeaway was the strong family unit, you know, togetherness on a holiday, um, very sleek, very I mean, like you said, it was choreographed very well. Everyone looked beautiful. Everyone looked happy. Sweet Charlotte waving at everyone and being just like this force walking ahead of everyone
Mm.
else. And then we have Harry and Meghan uploading
Ah,
to Instagram, on social media, the platform that they tell us not to allow our children. Their two children running around alone. I mean, I think that Meghan was trying to disrupt those powerful, positive headlines, especially about the Wales family. Because really, the story, in my opinion, I know we had a lot of headlines about the Mountbatten Windsors, and by that I
mm.
mean Andrew's family. But really, I felt like the big takeaway was how gorgeous the Wales family looked, and I thought Meghan was trying to distract from that. And I think she blows it because we look at those bizarre videos she posts and think, how lonely are these children that don't know their cousins?
Well, no, well, more importantly, why isn't she in that lovely garden having a bucket load of children running around of their children's friends, because it's big enough, having an Easter bunny hunt? Now, it's not something I was brought up with. Remember, I'm a starchy old Englishman, right? And bar humbug. The only thing we used to do at Christmas is my parents used to paint a hard-boiled egg, right? And that was about the
At Easter
size.
or Christmas?
No, Good Friday. You'd eat
Oh,
a
okay.
painted. No, this is for Easter, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about my Easter celebrations,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? As a family, basic in the extreme. Obviously, as you know, I do have an American wife from Boston. Now, she knows what an Easter bunny hunt is all about because that's when she was telling me about how, as a family, their mother would make sure they were all ready for the Easter bunny, right? I don't know what that means, but basically, have fun as children. And when we would, she would insist having the Easter bunny hunt for and children around. Why? We don't necessarily need to see the children, but when have we ever seen those children look like they're interacting with anyone else? And once again, we get the famous back view,
Yeah.
right? Now, and I'm sorry, and here's where I really get, and we've gone early. We're only 10 minutes into the program, and you've got me fuming already. So, Kinsey, you've got me rattled early. But you knew this was coming. The fact that I was sending you something so early in the morning, because it riled me when I saw it. Why, when she is who other else? Look, we send pictures of our family to doing stuff to other family members, but we don't. We might just put it on quietly. You know, but she is making a PR point.
Hmm.
She is trying to give herself. I am still a member of the royal family, and I post stuff about my children, and it's just wrong. She is no longer a member of the royal family. Why does she feel the need that to do this when we know that Charlotte, George, and Louis are there in this semi-public official moment, and it's one of the few times they get photographed? And they know that when they turned up at St. George's Chapel, they were there and they were all in their best bib and tucker, Easter, we were dressed up for Easter, and that's it. And the press have got their happy day.
Well, I
Move
also
on.
think that there's something so there's such a stark contrast too between this family showing up to church and Harry and Meghan showing us their children running around in the backyard with an Easter bunny in their hands. I have said this before and I'll say it again. I've never heard Harry and Meghan talk about faith or spirituality. And I see so much of what's wrong with them in that. Meghan worships one God and one God alone, and that's Meghan. And I truly feel like that upload was meant to compete with what was happening on in your neck of the woods. And there's just no competition. There's just no comparison when you're watching this gorgeous family walk in to acknowledge that he is risen, that we're dealing with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And Harry and Meghan, it's again just such a shallow display from the States. The Sussexes and their shallow displays, they never disappoint. But it doesn't compare. And I'm curious to know if you've recognized this too, but since the departure of Meredith Maines, I feel like Meghan is really pushing the family brand, mother of the year, more so than
Oh,
she was in 2025 when she was trying to be the female entrepreneur.
well, she's gone, what else has she got? And actually, they're running around this garden, which I am pretty sure she has not mowed that lawn. And actually, it looked as if it needed mowing, but obviously, you know, great big garden, lovely. Look, if she can afford it, it's fine and dandy. And how privileged is she that her children can run around a garden like that? There will be people in California begging to have the opportunity to run that. So that's why I don't understand. Even in the As Ever, we never saw when she was doing these things for the children. We never actually saw the children looking as if they enjoyed what she was these party bags, which God knows what. There was some pretty wacky backy stuff. Well, not wacky
That's
backy,
that
but
would be like you and I in the kitchen making dog treats and never giving them to our dogs on
yeah.
camera. That's not good TV.
No, and actually, I can tell you what she was putting together. The last thing, if I was one of Archie or
You're
Lily,
like,
I
those
wouldn't
were
want.
dog treats. Those were dog
Oh,
treats.
I wouldn't want any of that stuff. If I was Archie, I'd have thrown it back. Mum, where's the good stuff?
This is not edible. This is not
It's
edible, Duchess.
this is stop being trying to be all anyway.
Yeah.
We digress because the point is we know it's an absolute. It comes out a few hours after the seeing them walking in on a spring Easter day into St. George's Chapel. Everyone's got a happy shot of the royal family coming together for Easter. All we get from the Sussexes is children running away from the camera. Let's be honest, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay? Run away from run away. And I'm
As far as
filming
we
you.
know, there's a person on managing the camera screaming no wire hangers, and they're fearful for their lives.
Whatever. And give the poor girl a pair of shoes. Uh, yeah. Anyway, but it's absolutely a PR stunt, and you can't rewrite it any other way. And if people, look, if the children are having fun, I'm not going to begrudge the children's having fun. Because I remember with children of that age, it is fun. And look, and I'm a starchy Englishman who didn't do any of this stuff. We'd go to church, and that would, and you get some dodgy piece of chocolate, right? Right. Whereas now it's sort of, I don't know what you did for Easter. I don't know whether amongst your friends in California, how you celebrate Easter amongst your generation, but amongst ours, what we did is we had a pretty good knees up. We had a good lunch, went to church, did what we had to do, and enjoyed
This was
ourselves.
our table, and I was in Charleston. Is that not the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen?
Well, okay. Well, I'm sure I might send to our producer. I'm sure my wife has taken a picture of our Easter table, if you want, full of our tulips from our garden.
Yes,
Uh,
I
but
love
anyway,
that.
but anyway, well, I'm glad. I hope you had a lovely time. But yesterday, that post when it came through, the fact is, as soon as I saw it and I sent it to you, shows I think you knew what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I think I verbalized what I was thinking to you now. I just feel sorry for Archie. And the other thing I noticed, and someone else, I saw someone pointed out, Lily's always in a summer frock, and Archie looks like he's dressed in the Arctic. Okay, so I'm sort of, I don't know. It's just I'm looking
We
at the guy.
honestly should just sit back and thank God we heard from Archie because I thought he was locked in the basement. We ever hear about is
Yeah,
Lily. I feel sorry
yeah,
for Archie because
and he was
Lily is
doing that.
clearly the chosen one.
Yeah, and he was doing that arty thing with putting paint on it, which is what kids do. But let's, okay,
There's a the thing
we don't
is
see
they
chart.
I don't feel like we're hammering home. Actually, Scott Rouse, who does another program with me, gets really riled up about this. I don't think we're hammering hard enough over the fact that they tell people not to put their children on social media, but then they put their children on social
Oh,
media in a way that um, that triggers a curiosity, putting just the back of their heads it triggers a curiosity in the mentally unstable. And Scott Rouse deals with a lot of he works in with law enforcement. I mean, he works on cases where he's trying to find stolen children. And he says that the way that they flirt, the way that they tease
no.
the children just showing glimpses of their faces is actually incredibly dangerous and puts them in jeopardy far more than if they shared images of their faces because it triggers the mentally unstable to become obsessed with the mystery. And he actually gets irate over Meghan doing this because he says
Uh,
she doesn't understand the danger she's likely putting her children in with just showing these glimpses of their faces. And ultimately, we think she's going to try to monetize the big reveal. But what she's actually doing, again, while preaching not to put your children out on social media, is triggering some unstable
yeah.
people out there.
I don't disagree with that, and I'd love to talk to this guy you talked to because I think I completely understand where he's coming from because the Waleses have got it right. They say we know they put out birthday shots and whatever at regular intervals just to keep the press at bay, but we see them, and I'm sure. William and Catherine are sitting down with their children saying, look, sadly, this is part of the brief. Every so often, we're going to have to put something out there, but the rules are clearly defined. When you go to school, you'll be able to do exactly what you want. And let's be honest, in this country, we are not seeing any shots of them outside the controlled environment that the parents and the royal family will have created for them, protecting them as much as possible. But we see them. And, you and I, we will see them when you and I go to the King's birthday parade. They will be on hand, right?
Yeah.
And they will be there doing their bit, watching Grandpa doing his bit. They will be there in a carriage. So we all know we'll see them then. We may see them one or two other times in the intervening period, maybe a birthday shot for Charlotte or whatever. That's great. But to see this slightly freak show stuff that comes from the Sussexes, it's just wrong because you're right. And I hadn't looked at it that way and thinking, because people do want to, well, what do they look like? And so therefore you've got that, you will create that sort of, well, what are they are they embarrassed? But why do they feel the need? And this is where I feel I come back to the point. The poor children, given even still with their prince and princess title,
Yeah. In
they're
America.
they're in America for God's sake. Look, and I know I've said it before, and I'm sorry if I'm boring listeners,
No,
viewers
they
about
love
this,
you. You're fine.
but it's in context, and this is just a further manifestation of a clearly lack of thinking and just basically wanting. Meghan thinks by doing that she's putting two fingers up to the royal family,
Hmm.
and metaphorically, she may think she is, but she just makes her look downright freaky.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm sorry, and I don't want to be seen as some sort of, you know, jumping on some bang running here. But it's, 6 hours or 7 hours after that. I mean, give me a break. I mean, if it's not, we can all see it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
tawdry.
it's a one-sided competition, and
Yeah.
I take it back. I was going to say I don't even know if Harry's involved in the one-sided competition, but he is. He's very petty. Let's just all you have to do is read Spare. Very petty.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like one-sided competition. Meghan Markle is obsessed with competing with
Mm.
this family who's forgotten about her. Hey guys, your skincare might be more toxic than your food. Can you believe it? Just like choosing healthy food, we need to be careful about what we put on our body. I've become hyper aware of every product. I use reading labels, researching ingredients, realizing just how many toxic chemicals we let into our daily routine. Check the label on your moisturizer. It reads like a lab report. Swap your toxic moisturizer for Cow Guy's Tallow Balm. This is a natural hydrating balm with ingredients you can actually pronounce. It's safe and more effective than conventional alcohol or water based lotions, and your skin will be glowing. Tallow Balm was used for generations before Big Pharma ruined skincare. Use it as a lotion on your hands, arms, legs, face, and lips. Use it for eczema, psoriasis, dry, or normal skin as an everyday moisturizer. Plus, it's American made and rancher owned in the great state of Texas. I'm from Texas. It's the best tallow balm you can find. Search up cowguys.com to get your tallow balm and get a mini tallow balm for free. No special code needed. That's 3 to 4 months of moisturizer for just $34. Search cowguys.com to grab free tallow balm with your order. I mean, we have this other story. We don't have to dwell on it too long, but Prince William has ruthless streak and holds a grudge, especially when someone sides with Harry and Meghan. This was about Justin Welby. I thought what
Mm.
was interesting was Roya Nika said she was talking to Times Radio, and she said Justin and his team for many years did try very hard to get meetings with Prince William, and there was just a wall of silence that came down. And ultimately, what we discovered was that William was really uncomfortable with Justin because he had a close relationship with Harry and Meghan and did some, you know, mediation, I guess, between, or tried to do some mediation. And Prince William was like, honestly, I don't feel, I don't, I can't trust you because I can't trust Harry. And you're clearly engaging with Harry. So justified in my book, as I was reading this list, it says the Prince of Wales' wrath allegedly extends far beyond the former Archbishop and has been felt by some of his former friends, like journalist Tom Bradby, and his family members, including Prince Harry and Meghan, his uncle Andrew, and his ex wife, Sarah Ferguson, and their daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. And I was like, honestly, sounds like a list of degenerates to me. I
Well,
get that.
well, no, Justin Welby, former Archbishop of Canterbury, whose term as the head of the Anglican Church didn't end too well for him. Now, he's an interesting character, Justin Welby. Sort of came, he's looking at his path to becoming Archbishop of Canterbury, or um, but he, as I say, he didn't end well for him. For William, he's got to be. Look, last week I copped a bit of flack, didn't I? I'm not always just going to be. Um, what you've got to learn to do is, if you have grudges, you've always got to learn to have to deal with those grudges and those feelings. And I think William does feel at times, and quite rightly so, he does have the weight of the world on his royal shoulders in terms of what's expected of him, because he is seen. And actually, the Easter parade is a reflection, and we've spoken about before, of what's around him, of his generation. So he has to be very protective of the institution. So if he feels people are creating issues, then he probably has a right to think, right, I'm going to I'm going to defend this. I have to be strong. So if he has an opinion that someone is not behaving right, then to some extent he has to say his piece, go out there, say what he thinks, but at the same time, as he gets older, then have a maturity, then have the ability to reflect on that grudge or whatever it is. Now, for Justin Welby, his important thing now is for Prince William now to create a very positive relationship with the new Archbishop of Canterbury, whose enthronement he went to a couple of weeks back.
And it
So
sounds like
that's
he's
for
committed to that as well. He's committed to
yeah,
that.
and I think because ultimately, if she's still Archbishop of Canterbury, she's going to have the most historic moment of any Archbishop of Canterbury, because she will be the first woman to officially crown the monarch of this country.
Wow.
So it's if you put that's if you look at that, that is a big, big moment if she is still around, however long that is, if she is able and is still around. So for her, this is a seismic appointment, and for William, will understand also the significance of that. So for both of them, it will be so. I think it's important that he does develop that relationship so they have a mutual trust, faith, understanding of what they are part of. And
I love that.
and and that is it's a big deal when you look at Archbishop, the churches, Catholic churches, Anglican churches have all had to deal with a series of major allegations that have questioned people's commitment to the church. But for William, this is a golden opportunity. And I think even yesterday was a quiet reflection that, yep, I know what I've got to do now, and I've got to be seen. And I'm rocking up to church. I see the Archdeacon of St. George's and rock up with my family. But ultimately, any of these grudges move on. But for Justin Welby, look, it didn't work out for him. I know people who know him say he's a nice enough guy, but in the end, it became a complicated gig because there were all these allegations of inappropriate behavior, which all churches have gone through, and allegations of cover-ups and everything, which he had to some extent, deal with as well. So it wasn't an easier tenure for him as Archbishop of Canterbury. So for William, that may have been part of the frustrations as well.
A quick question before we move on. Let's wrap with the Prince Harry International Association of Privacy Professionals event. Did you read that? We can't, the woman wants to remain anonymous, but did you read that email I sent you? That
Yeah,
was
word of
like,
God. Oh, wow.
I know, I know. So Rupert and I got a really great email that gave us some backstory on this, and I'm going to Cliff's notes it. Yeah, I'm going to summarize it as best as I can, and Rupert and I will talk about some of the backstory.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that we know thanks to this source that wants to remain anonymous. But Prince Harry spoke out about the profound impact of a lack of privacy, which he claims to have experienced from birth, detailing the personal and reputational cost for me, my wife, and our children, who, without their
Mm.
consent, were put on Instagram over the weekend for Easter. But, I digress. And his remarks, this speech he gave, it was a keynote address in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. Um, of course, everybody noted that this was around the time that they announced that King Charles would be in DC. But Prince Harry would never do something to disrupt or distract from the British royal family. Now, an anonymous privacy and cybersecurity professional who lost out on a speaking opportunity at this conference for Prince Harry says they were stunned that Harry was chosen to give a keynote at the International Association of Privacy Professionals. According to the source, speakers normally have to submit a formal presentation and provide educational, practical guidance for professionals working in privacy, AI governance, or cybersecurity. Harry reportedly did none of that, instead, giving a general talk with little substance, no actionable takeaways, and no audience engagement. The source also questioned Harry's credibility on the topic, noting he holds no privacy or AI governance certifications, which he could do, Rupert. And they say that this is common among professionals at the event, that you would hold these certifications. They argue that if he was serious about the subject, he could pursue those. For a better understanding of the law and framework governing privacy and artificial intelligence. They also criticize the lack of detail about the work Archwell was doing. I think this is a really incredible or important, I should say, criticism, and something that Rupert and I probably agree with. They say that Archwell, saying organizations speaking at these conferences typically highlight research, initiatives, and resources they've developed to help the industry. And according to the source, Harry referenced privacy by design, but didn't expand on it or cite research, legislation, or real world solutions, particularly when discussing children's privacy. So, what the hell is Archwell doing? The attendees also questioned the value delivered to conference participants, pointing out that Rupert, tickets cost more than $1,500 for members and nearly $1,800 for non-members. In their view, the keynote offered little practical insight for professionals who attend the event and want to earn continued education credits. Finally, they raised concerns about Archwell's own privacy practices, noting the Sussexes website collects various types of user data and that its privacy policy lacks details such as a responsible contact person or data protection officer. So, I don't know how often you're in the States, but we are forced to have a little thing that pops up that says somebody's collecting cookies on you. And she's
Yeah.
basically saying, look, Archwell, they're collecting information on you when you go to As Ever, when you go to Archwell's website, when you go to their website, they're quietly collecting information on you. And now we've got Meghan going to Australia, and they did checks on the people trying to get into Meghan's event. They did social media checks. They wanted to make sure you weren't a Meghan Markle hater. And we'll talk about people claiming that they're going to infiltrate later.
Oh well, that's another story,
That's
but
a whole episode.
another whole other story. And I've
But
got some Meghan, I've got some Duchess of Windsor gossip for you. But anyway,
yeah.
this whole thing, when I read it, because it sort of passed me by that he'd gone to do this speech. When I read the newspaper article, and I'm actually thinking, God, this is the same rubbish. Well, not rubbish, but it's the same. Basically, picked out his speech from his computer, printed it again. It's the same stuff that he has been saying. There was nothing new. And bearing in mind the privacy case that's just had, that we've been running stories over here about how suddenly he's been having snuggles with journalists.
Yeah.
You know, right?
Movie snuggles,
Movie snuggles with,
BG string, Thirsty Thursdays.
yeah. He supposedly has never had a contact with a journalist, but now we're hearing that lots of he was back in the sort of late noughties, 2011. These were on his speed dial by the sound of things.
Yeah.
And you probably know many of these journalists, and I think we've all come across them who knew Harry. So, when I read the person saying, I'm always slightly, you have to always take it. I didn't get the speaking gig. So where is this person coming from? Right? So you always have to say, is she or he feeling vindictive? But at the same time, if this is a credible conference
That
that
was
is amongst,
a pretty thorough breakdown for
yeah,
us.
no, a very thorough breakdown,
Yeah.
because actually you're talking to seasoned professionals who are there to understand and then sit round and work out what do we need to do to protect people, make sure we're not going over the top and everything. Whereas Harry's just coming from, well, since birth, I've been a victim,
Yeah.
right?
And I have
Okay.
no real solutions. I just
No.
use some of this jargon that I've learned through, Chat
Yeah.
GPT or through being around the speaking circuit. But I think to spend $1,800 to sit in that
Yeah.
venue and Harry not present you with any solutions or education, I'd be incredibly frustrated. Rupert, why? I think that like the vanilla answer is Harry provides PR. But why do these organizations continue to pander to this moron, in my opinion?
Well,
This
well,
guy who
more
has,
on. Actually, I was at somewhere today. And I met somebody who turned around to me and said, "Well, I was at school with a cousin of mine was at school with Harry, and this cousin of mine finished second in the second last in the class, and Harry finished last." So the problem is, and and actually, it's a good point. My son, one of my sons, taught me a good lesson. He said, "It's all right criticizing and saying something's wrong. But if you're going to criticize, then come up with a solution to say, well, why don't we, don't just criticize. Here's a solution." I've never heard Harry come up with a solution. Now, this is his sort of raison d'etre, is the privacy issue, as he talks about it, this court case and everything. This is what gets him out of bed. But has he ever said, right, well, I'd like the press to behave like this, or I'd like this to
or
happen?
has he ever acknowledged that it was a violation of his family's privacy when he wrote about them in Spare or talked about
Oh,
them in the Oprah Winfrey interview or talked about them in the Netflix series? I mean, it's really hard for me to sit and digest Harry talking about anything privacy related when the only reason I know about private text messages between Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and Meghan Markle is because Harry
yeah.
published them in his book.
Well, therein lies the problem. The hypocrisy is writ large. And I read somewhere today, and I don't know whether it's true, but wasn't the Oprah interview recorded before Philip's death, but they
Yes.
still sanctioned it to be released?
Yes.
I did
Yes.
was unaware of that. And you think, oh,
Yes. And
no,
I read at the time, and I was a working royal reporter at the time. One of the stories circulating was that the palace told them that Prince Philip was ill, and in hopes that they would hold on to that interview, that they would postpone the release of that interview. And they felt like the palace were trying to manipulate them, and they did not realize that Prince Philip was as ill as he was. And it's just that vengeance brain that's like, well, no, you're not going to tell us what to do. So they wanted it released, despite the fact that it just caused so many more problems for the elderly queen and prince.
absolutely. And this is where I go. you know, again, you must look, he's done this court case. Now, if he wins it, all's fair in love and war,
I
right?
think CG
Um,
String might have thrown a wrench in that
well,
great success, but we'll
uh,
have to wait and see.
well, no, we can't prejudge what, and it's going to take the judge a long time before he comes up with his verdict on this. But there definitely just feels like even the lawyer who was working with Harry and the team, who is one of the best around. It's you looking from the outside in, and I'm not in any position to prejudge. Even he felt like he was clutching at straws a bit. So it will be very interesting, bearing in mind that what it appears that Harry did have journalists on speed dial, and he was out there doing whatever, having snuggles, whatever he was.
Spending multiple weekends with them
Yeah,
according to those messages, spending multiple weekends with them, and you can get a lot of
yeah.
information out of time
Oh,
spent with people. I mean, it's
well,
common sense. It's common
yeah,
sense.
exactly. You talk to people, and you're sitting around watching some movie, and then say something, as a throwaway line, whatever. And before you know it, you've got the information. So I'm not saying I don't know the whole background, but at the same time, if you're being paid money to go to Washington to talk to a room of seasoned business people in that world, then my goodness me, make sure you come up with something better than what sounded like in the article that you read, the article in the newspaper.
I sent you the speech
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
the
want to go on.
article. Yeah, but the article just went, and I'm going, there's nothing new. And people, and as I say, one of my sons turning around to me and saying, Dad, it's all right criticizing something, but make sure. And I thought, well, that's a fair point.
All right,
So
I'm going to
always,
say three things. A, make sure you send me pictures of your Easter tulips.
yeah.
B, um, why don't we hold on to your Duchess of Windsor story? Because I'll have you and Hugo Vickers on Royally Unfiltered because Hugo's got a new book about her and he has very similar stories to yours. So let's hold on
Oh,
to yours. Let's do Royally
well,
Unfiltered and we'll do some Duchess of Windsor on Royally Unfiltered.
very
And
good. Always like good talking to Hugo.
I
Yes,
know
and
Hugo loves you too.
particularly as he's written about Prince Philip, and I need to have an off-the-record conversation with him, which I think even him might add something to him. So
Oh,
there
I
you
love
go.
that. I love that.
Yeah.
And
I think
then
I've told you the story, but we can't repeat it.
okay. But then and then B, so your takeaway from Harry in Washington D.C. is how do we close this out? Your takeaway is what? That Harry needs to step up
Uh,
his game if he wants to continue to
uh,
be a paid public speaker.
if they're going to be public speakers, then you've got to be turning up with something that actually makes the audience feel, goodness me, you know what you're talking about, and you've got a solution to the problem. Harry's view of the world is, I've got a problem, I've been a part of the problem, but I don't know how to solve the problem.
Yeah,
Unless I've missed,
victimhood does not make you an expert. You have to seek out
yeah,
what the solution is to your son's point,
yeah.
and you have to fight it. And I think you need to like put your money where your mouth is. And the hypocrisy of Harry trying to talk about privacy while the royal family is currently not engaging with him in any way, shape, or form because they don't trust him, because they're fearful that it will end up in People magazine or Harper's Bazaar or wherever. I think that says a lot. Actually,
Uh, um,
I let me go ahead and say what you were going to say, but I
well, here's the thing. It's like watching a lot of modern politicians haven't done a diddly squat apart from go to university, work for a political party, and this is all over the world. And then next minute they're in parliament or they're in whatever, and they suddenly have to do something,
mhm,
right? And it's the
yeah.
reality is because they've actually done nothing, but
Yeah,
actually just said,
they
learn how
ran
to be a
a good PR campaign
yeah,
and
get
now
rid
they
PR campaign. But the reality of business life, work life. In this country, in the old days, we used to have old school establishment figures, and then you'd have trade unions. But the trade unions, who were, say, traditionally Labour, they'd be hardworking, and then the sort of political, the political picture was business and unions, but there was a mutual respect. They all understood where they're coming from. But nowadays, you look at the modern politician, and this is across the board. Basically, they work for a political party, but have they actually got their hands dirty doing something that is earning money, reality of
Execute
the
it.
world,
Yeah.
executing it? And therein lies the problem. For Harry, he's in that category. And where William is different, he is saying that he wants his charities, his homelessness, the Earthshots, to actually be something significant. I'm not just a talking head. And I
Right.
think that's the big difference between William and Harry.
Yeah.
Harry's talking head. William, I'll
Doer.
do less. I'm a doer. And what I do, I want to see results.
Exactly. Okay, so but we'll wrap with this. So the conference IAPP, they posted highlights on
Uh,
LinkedIn. And here's the top comment. Disappointed to see IAPP elevate a figure like Prince Harry, whose track record on privacy is at best inconsistent. Speaking about respect for privacy while having commercially exposed deeply personal family matters undermines the very principles being discussed. Privacy is not a selective standard applied when convenient.
I couldn't agree more. And
Mic drop.
mic drop. We were in unison then. Mic drop. And it's like he turns up. He's the aviator of the year. He's looking for things to give him relevance. And I'm sorry, when you're in a room and look, these people know what they're talking about. They want to be, they're paying big money to go there. They want to hear someone come up with some solutions. Yes, he's been in the front line, so he should by now know what is needed, age 40, what's needed to protect and help these seasoned professionals do the right thing. But giving an hour less lecture with full of, my grievances,
Yeah.
well,
Get
sling
out of
your hook,
here.
mate. Get
Yeah.
out of here, boy.
All
Yeah.
right. Agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. And I've got to go plan a date with Hugo Vickers and Rupert Bell so that we can get you all of this great Duchess of Windsor content because they both have really unique stories about the Duchess of Windsor that we want to share with you right here on Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. So I look forward to doing that. We hope you had a good Easter holiday, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Happy days.